Okay, so here we go.
Here we go.
You may want to mute us again.
Yes, in fact, if you don't mind, for some of the time, it's also for the recording. We would like to mute everyone besides Bayo and us, because then the video back and forth between Bayo and us, but we only will do that for a period of time, and then we go back to that. You can see whatever you want to see. It's just for the videos recording that audio setting helps. So you can see this as you wish, but we would like to have this recording for parts of the conversation. Great.
So thank you so much for joining us in this experiment. This is an experiment in creating a living network of people who care deeply about what's happening on this planet and are committed to making change. And that starts with oneself, but it radiates out in, I'm sure people, there's a lot of different experience here. And the experiment is, can we come together and stay in, as friend Bayo often says, stay in the trouble. Although I think you got that from Donna Haraway, didn't you?
Yep.
How can we stay in the trouble? And the trouble is that right now, I've been very touched by Mika White's book, The End of Protest. This is the person who was really one of the key seeds behind the Occupy movement, came up with the term Occupy. And he's basically saying, hey, wait a minute, look, we have had the biggest protests on this planet in the last 10 years, 5 years. We have millions of people. I mean, think about it, starting with the Iraq War. There were millions of people in every major capital in the world. And it had no effect. It was like, we're doing this. Protest, social change, activism is incredibly important for so many different reasons, to call power to account, and to be accountable ourselves. We're running into a point where not only is it not effective, but I think more and more of us are becoming aware that the ways that we engage with social change creates similar dynamics to the dynamics that we're trying to make different. That the dominance and subordinates, certain forms of hierarchy, certain ways of thinking, simplistic ideas of linear causality, that our activism is wrapped up in the very same deep structures that we see as toxic. So what do we do with that? How do we come together and create an aliveness between us in an exploration of where are we? Who are we? What's happening here? And I'm very, very honored to be in this exploration with Bayo Akomolafe, and I find Bayo's work to be heartrending and puzzling in very important ways. And also I'm very happy to be also with Thomas Steininger, who's often my teaching partner, and whose capacity to create a field of awareness between human beings for deeper investigation is I find quite remarkable. So I'm hoping that together we together and with over the period of the next six months, beginning in August, on the first Friday of every month, our intention is to bring in a guest and talk about knotty issues, puzzlements, things that we don't know how to get beyond, and invite you to have discussions and into the discussion and dialogue about, well, if so, then what? What does that mean? What does that mean for me as a human being? What does that mean for us as change makers? What does it mean for the work and projects that I'm part of? That's where we want to go with this. And Thomas and Bayo, I invite you to jump in and I'll see where you go.
Bayo.
You go, Thomas.
If I continue, I just would like to talk also about a particular point that I just always want to bring into this conversation, and it is the conversation itself. Because I think if we talk about a new form of activism, it's also finding new ways of being together and using our capacity as humans just to meet, to listen to each other, to hear each other, and also using new technology like internet technology that we have to have global conversations in order just to come together in also small groups. That's the reason why we also want to do this course with breakout groups, where we can talk in smaller groups face to face about all the issues that we want to come to, but have this from people all around the globe, create something that all human communion is about. It's encounter and being aware of each other. And when we see each other, even on a computer screen, and are aware that there's another human being on the other side, I find it always fascinating that the moment we come together, even the moment we come together on an on-screen event like this, my consciousness changes. If I just pay attention, something is pulling me out of my private world, and seeing all of you and hearing all of you opens me up to the shared world that we are creating together here. And to some degree, that's a big part of the process we also want to do with this with these calls, that we just are present to the presence of each other. Bayo, in a call that we had yesterday as a preparation also for this, introduced a beautiful term where he changed the word bearing witness to bearing witness. And I think if we just also find out together in that in all the things that we are talking about, how we can share our witness, I'm very excited where this course can go. Bayo, now it's your turn.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, sister, for that, for framing it in beautiful ways. I think what I feel inspired to say at this time, first of all, is to greet everyone and to greet you in your place and to honor you and say thank you for showing up to this conversation. And this conversation isn't just, there are reasons why we showed up today. There are reasons why we are here. Many of us, if not all of us, want to do good. We want to do right by the world. We have a sense that things are not exactly how they ought to be. And in our own ways, we are attempting to respond to a feeling of crisis, to something that seems stubborn, resilient, that is sticky, and doesn't seem to be adaptable to our traditional, familiar notions of change. So we plant tomatoes, or we compost or grow our own food, or we decide to pull our children from schools, or we do something else. We're striving for a sense of authenticity. And this technical, cyborgian, confluence of people, joining together with our laptops to have a conversation about activism and change and what the world could become, or maybe your idea of a more beautiful world. I think it's a beautiful thing. It's conspiratorial in ways that excite me personally. I know we'll dive into it, but I might just want to add that I come from lands that are keenly aware of other agencies. By agency, I mean other paradigms of action altogether. And if there's time, I will tell stories in the conversations that I'll be having with you and with Elizabeth and Thomas. But let me just put this one in quickly. There is a rite of passage in South Africa. I don't know if anyone here is from South Africa. I think from the Xhosa tribe. That means a man has to leave his community. A boy has to leave his community to hunt a lion. And in stepping out of the community, he's no longer a boy. He's expected to step back with the hide of the lion. And when he steps back into that forum, into that space, he becomes a man. But in the meantime, he's neither a boy or a man. He's something curious. He's something in between. He's something of a monster, if you will. And I feel that we are all in that space of liminality. Our regimes of change feel inadequate to the desires and yearnings of today. Our methodologies, our ways of asking questions, the things that we notice, the things that we fail to notice, all these things are calling dramatically for a new way of engaging. And I want to use new with some hesitation. So this is not some another attempt to quickly come up with a solution, to quickly say, now we're here, let's find out and create a new utopian model for how we feel the world ought to work for us. This is more of a humbling of ourselves, or resituating ourselves with the humility and the promiscuity of the world, and staying in that space of trouble, a phrase I so much admire, staying in that space of entanglement, and then letting whatever happens, happen. So yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Bayo. And I wanted to also, when you were talking about the boy, the boy being asked to hunt a lion, I guess one of the things that occurred to me is ritual and rite of passage, and how in the Western world we've pretty much almost down to a cult from every nation culture in the West have lost those rituals. Becoming a young woman is often, there's the beginning of menstruation, but that's not usually even met or honored. There's a kind of increasingly being pulled into a world of superficiality, of surface, of where the depth and tenderness and also monstrousness, but creativity and unknowability in the best possible way of who one could be is papered over by these images of who you're supposed to be airbrushed to look like. And these are rites of passage at this point. Is something that I find deeply painful, and I think that's where I come from in this conversation. And in the last years, I've been an activist, a women's feminist activist, a women's rights activist since I was 17. I'm quite a bit older than that now. and
just a little,
just a tad. And I have, my life has been to kind of go find the way through to difference and non-separation at the same time, if that makes any sense. To be able to hold that we're different, we're all different, and yet to be deeply united in spirit and in what is human. And I, from an early age, I was involved in both consciousness raising that was beautiful, where something resonated between us as we kind of realized, like the bars that we were in, we were able to see them and say, wow, look at that. We're in this world together. And also legislative or protest actions and so forth and so on. And it's been a question of my life, how do you combine these? But even more lately, what I've been stumbling on is the fact that the unintended consequences of good and well-intentioned change. That we can have the best of intentions and the best hopes, and then you see things that happen as a result of the very important sexual liberation of women, ending up turning back on young girls in funny ways. You see the hope for equality between men and women turned into a strange numbers game that doesn't seem to have any grounding in deeper values. And it's like, how do we move from here? What does this mean? I mean, this is, the place that I'm in is it's like, okay, how do we care? How do we take care so as much as we possibly can and not have a route in front of us? Because I don't think that there's a route that we've come up with yet. Otherwise we would have, because we're very smart, that takes us where we want to go. And I am looking to sit in this with other human beings and find out what happens then. Because I think that it is in this liminality that you're speaking about. And that liminality is also a liminality of knowing what works, or finding that nothing works really anymore, or that the thing that you want to change ends up backfiring on you. And it's like, oh my God, this is worse than where we started from, I think. And it's that place of liminality and not disconnecting and still caring that I feel is there's something.
You say something about the rites of passage and rituals, and that draws upon some of the things I've done with ritual and how rituals enact the world. So there is a popular notion that the West, the stylized West, is devoid of rituals. And it's in exotic indigenous lands that we have rituals that are still intact. But that's a very impoverished notion of ritual. Rituals are the things we do every day to ensure our continuity, to keep on caring. Western civilization, for instance, even the disenchantments that we suffer are as a result of our ways or modes of caring. Like anytime I step into Europe, or I was in Paris recently, anytime I step into that space, there is with the neat roads, the ultra neat roads, the painstaking attention to detail and timing. In Switzerland, Tom and I were in Switzerland in 2012, and I remember jumping on the bus there and the timings were like maybe at 8:39, not 8:40, not 8:38. The bus comes at 8:39 and it leaves at 8:42. That's a way of taking care. I'd never seen anything like that before, because buses come whenever they will in places like India, where I am right now. But that's a mode of taking care. It's a way of saying, this is how we attune to the world. This is how the world works. But in doing so, we exclude other possibilities from happening. There is a beautiful proverb I like to echo. It says, name the color, blind the eye. Name the color, blind the eye. So in naming something, in giving something attributes, in imposing an identity on whatever, on anything, you simultaneously exclude its alterity, its other modes of being in the world, and you're blind to those modes, the complementary ways it can appear. It's in that sense that I feel that the ways that we've been conditioned and the ways we've nurtured ourselves into responding to the world excludes other, modes of action from appearing. And, this is probably why we're here, to stretch the parenthesis of action just a little bit, to probe those sentences that insist that this is the meaning of life, or this is the meaning of action, or this is what it means to be a human being gestating in modern civilization. It's to stretch that sentence just a little bit more and see that there are other ways that we've discountenanced or delegitimized or pathologized that we can engage in and listen to today. Elders in Africa will say, in times of crisis, slow down. And slowing down is not I remember saying that to a friend of mine who is also German, but living in Paris, by a stroll. And I remember echoing that proverb to him, and he wrote me by email months later and said, it's not working. This invitation of yours to slow down. I typed a memo today and I deliberately tried to type it slowly, and that wasn't exactly effective. And I had to write back to him and say, no, the idea of slowing down is not an invitation to reduce your speed. Here's where worldviews really matter, and stories matter. It's not an invitation to reduce your speed. It's more of an invitation to broaden your awareness of the soup you're immersed in. It's a remaking of temporality itself. It's the old notion that time is just this linear march from past to present to future has even been disproven by quantum physics itself. And so we now understand that we are not in one world, we're in many worlds. And we're not alive to those worlds because we continually, with our rituals, perpetuate a single world to the exclusion of other worlds. And so this is more of an invitation of sitting down and then probing and troubling our position, our positionality, where we are right now, and inviting ourselves to be touched by things that will probably surprise us. Yeah.
No, it's interesting hearing you, Bayo, because of what you're saying about rituals. I completely understand there is this kind of romantic view from Westerners that the rituals is something that indigenous people do, and indigenous people are not us.
Oh, ritual is a jumping, it's the Hollywoodized notion of ritual. Someone jumping, or...
So it's just very important to be aware that all cultures, also our cultures, are built out of rituals. But at the same time, there's something where just by you bringing this up, I feel as a Westerner I have to listen, because I have to be aware, and this is just the case, then I'm not so aware that what we are doing are rituals. We're just on time. Buses are on time because they have to be on time. There's a reason for it, and there's a purpose for it. I don't see it being a ritual, and experiencing life as a ritual, even the punctuality of buses in Switzerland as a ritual of Swissness, which it is. It's not just being efficient, it's also a ritual of being Swiss to be on time. And to go with the way. Just to see the difference, sees how much and there are things you can say about all the different cultures in nations, where you think you do things because they make sense. That's a particular Western way of looking at it. But there is also things where the ritual way of enacting our selfness, and I just find it important for us to see that we are not just doing things because they make sense. We are also doing it because we are enacting ourselves.
Yeah.
And in that, something different is opening. And that's part of also of a global conversation where I feel, if I may stretch the image quite a bit, or maybe it's not even such a stretch, that what we are trying to do with this global cause is a rite of passage to something new. We are attempting to create a new ritual just because enacting this, what we are doing right now, is an open door to something different, of being aware of all the different worlds that we are living in, and being aware that all these different worlds that we are living in can be in conversation, and just by witnessing it, presencing it, let's see what happens. And just to do this feels to be very important, and that is a form of activism, because that's different than protesting, different than having here we have to move from A to B. It's trying to enact a new ritual of being human together. That is an opening to something where I feel, yes, this opening is interesting.
I think we're in alignment with that, brother. The invitation to, I like how you say that the rituals are not just an enactment of something outside the self. They're actually an enactment of self, the notion of the
Exactly.
self. It's what makes sense to us. So I think that's a critical point to make. It's and it dances into our notions of what can be done or what should be done or how to respond to crisis. It dances into the kinds of questions we pose at this time. I mentioned earlier that I was in Paris, and I was there on an invitation from UNESCO. They invited me to speak with some very professorial persons about migration and identity. And, I'm sure most of us know that we are in a time where there's some migration crisis, where people are moving through Libya from Africa and trying to, not just from Africa, from Syria, and trying to move into Europe. And so recently, some governments have paid African nations to keep these potential refugees on the continent. And so these professors gathered to speak about migration. And I was the last speaker. I was on a panel, and all of them did great work presenting statistics that says, okay, these number of people are moving. Why are they moving? They're moving because of crisis in Syria. There's hunger, there's famine, there's suffering, and all that. And basically 3 of the professors said that, and I was invited to speak. And I remember doing something that was not exactly UNESCO-y. It's not exactly UNESCO friendly to engage participants. So I told them I was going to do that, and I wanted my presentation to be playful instead of, very heavy on statistics. And I engaged people. I asked about identity. So who are you? And people were immediately animated and raised up their hands and said, I'm an earthling. Someone said, I'm an earthling. And someone else said, I'm an alien gestating in the universe on Earth. I'm the Earth in complexity, stuff like that. And I was amazed to see people in UNESCO saying stuff that would be considered new agey stuff, in other contexts. But, in engaging people that way, I was able to understand that even our frames, the way we frame identity, is changing as well. And so, the way an institution as huge as UNESCO would frame a problem and say, this is a problem, migration is a crisis. My job, I think, at that time was to point attention to the fact that the problem wasn't objectively verifiable. It wasn't there. It wasn't a given. Someone said recently that seeing is tactile. We don't see the world. The world is, or let me put it this way: seeing is not passive. Seeing is political. The world doesn't lie outside our seeing, just waiting passively to be seen. I'm a problem. I'm migration, so just see me. That's the old passive Comtean model of the scientific model, that the world is just there. All you need to do is hone your skills of observation and you can see it clearly. But what we're recognizing today is that there's no such thing as clarity in that way. Observation is always stained by where we stand as human beings. So what UNESCO sees as a crisis, as a problem, is different from what the people who are engaging in those practices observe and see as a crisis. So here's my broad perspective about all this, that crisis is not just a problem. So this is not about isolating problems and saying this is what we have to solve, like we've been taught to. So this is not about saying climate change is a problem, how do we solve that? This is a problem, how do we solve that? It's about questioning how we have learned to see. It's about seeing our way of seeing and staying with that. So I agree with you, brother, that this is how we frame the self. This is about questioning our modes of selfhood and then stretching that a little bit and seeing what happens.
And doing that together.
Doing that together. It's a personal / collective quest. This is always political. This is always personal at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
And doing that together in relationship, which of course is the only way how you can do it together. And for that, creating places and spaces for relationship where something organically can grow together. Because when you were talking about UNESCO and crisis, it's also very obvious, how do we perceive the world? We perceive the world through media streams, through news articles, through reports, through all this kind of third perspective or mediated way of saying, oh, wait a moment, there's this refugee crisis in Africa mounting on Europe, or there's global warming, or this is happening in Australia, or whatever. It's a certain perspective that is cultivated there. And it's not a perspective of meeting. And I think what is needed, or what is one way of opening a different way of coming together is creating spaces where we can be face to face from all the different identities that we are, and just experience that just being together and exchanging changes. That just hearing each other and just hearing something that is so coming from different perspectives that I am not part of is something that is transformative in itself. That in itself is a practice. There's nothing wrong about listening or reading the news or whatever, but there's a whole dimension of being human that you leave out if this is the way how you see the world. The world has a different way of aliveness, and our human aliveness, we only become really aware in meeting places. So part of what I really love doing this calls, and why I'm excited for this One World of Dialogue, because I see not only that I have really hope that something is possible. I just see, since we are doing this, since we did this One World Rising big webcast with several thousand listeners and people from all around the globe some months ago, I have experience of a different world space I'm connected to and I'm opening up, and I see something is changing. I've sometimes not a clear idea what it is, but there's something where my reality of living is connected to these people, and it's something that is a real life space. There's an enlivening process between us and how to cultivate this, how to bring these different perspectives. I'm deeply convinced it has a contribution to where we want to go as a human race.
Well, because we're talking about spanning self in a very different way, and we're, you know, in the ways that we see world, see problems, see whatever, we're not seeing self there. We typically don't see the world as self in a deeper way, or see each other as self. And I think there's something about how and the places in which we touch each other that is that if we're really listening and really caring, that we open up to different dimensions of being here or of witness, and that is a different ritualization of self that takes me beyond myself, beyond the self that I'm so usually identified with.
Yes, yes. And, you know, all of this in the context of what is happening around the world today. Of course, we all notice that there is an increasing and almost dramatic loss of faith in the institutions that dot, you know, the landscape. If it's not just Brexit, it's not just the spectacle of Donald Trump at the Republican National Convention recently. It's not just any of that. It's that we're adapting to the context and we're responding. There is a feedback loop that is happening, and we're seeing that, look, these faith paradigms, these systems that we've, you know, ritually perpetuated, they no longer seem to be serving our deepest yearnings and hope as people. And that's why, you know, that's why this is not about the number of people that show up here. Whether it's 1, 2, or 3, it's a world-shattering event, because we're at the frothing edge of the paradigm-shifting frontier work, the edge work that is happening. This is the universe in its iteration. We are exploring what it means to be alive, what it means to be self, what it means to be non-self, what it means to be human and non-human. And this, I see, is going to lead to improvisational realities where we summon new institutions, new ways of being alive. And we're already seeing it. New ways of planting food, new ways of relating with our children. I'm not schooling my daughter because, and this is diving into history. This is re-energizing and decolonizing my history and connecting with land as learning instead of learning as distance. So this is exciting. This is yeah. I'm happy to be here again.
Great.
I wonder if it makes sense to break into groups and just talk a bit.
Elizabeth, maybe can I suggest that we actually just open up the space for people to just
respond?
Speak for a while before we dive into respond.
Cool.
To just tap into the collective intelligence and see what happens.
Okay.
Cool. Let's do that. And the best way is, if you raise your hand, which you can do on your screen. I'm just trying to figure out. There's one.
Savannah.
Savannah, we will unmute your phone. What? Sorry, it's not unmuted yet.
No.
It's unmuted now.
Oh. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. I'm very humbled to be here among you. Earlier, I was going to say to you, Elizabeth, aho, but we're way past that.
Aho.
I just want to say it is not our fault that so much of this awareness that indigenous people I've learned from, and especially Native Americans, has been suppressed. We can't beat ourselves up. These are things we never would have thought of in a million years. Just to introduce myself briefly, I'm a futurist, and I gave up on looking at alternative futures and decided we should create an alternative future, which all of you seem to be connected to. And my main motivation is to make an impact on changing education, especially kindergarten, and how we treat people with a lack of respect and dignity. And people would be shocked how many kindergartners do not like, love, and trust themselves. So, but in order to change education, I found out I have this one part, which I can put documents up if you're interested. It's how all institutions around the world are based in an interrelated effect, and the 12 main spheres of society. I also have a matrix, which there's many of them to plan a purpose, but this one is the most complete, and it teaches you the most important thing is to discover our purpose as a group, whatever our interest in the spheres of society, to take action. So these people are smart. Do not underestimate them. They understand how systems are created, and systems are created right now. The model is on conflict and confrontation. The outcome of that is fear, hatred, and anger. But what if we switched all our institutions to one of collaboration and cooperation as a foundation instead of conflict and confrontation? So I briefly offer my university level class, briefly in a small part, to contribute to our gathering. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Oh,
thank you, Savannah.
Did you see, right, Angelo, that you were raising your hand before? No. But we have one.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Where was it?
Bernadette? Bernadette, yeah, hang on. We need to unmute you. Okay, there you go.
Here you go.
Go ahead.
I'm living in Australia, and some years ago when my boys were teenagers, they have a what's called pathways here. They try to organize something as a rites of passage for girls and for boys, and both my boys did it. But one of the most beautiful opening stories when we went to find out about this pathways course, they talked about an African tribe and how when one of the adolescents in the tribe would make a mistake, would do something, whatever it might be, but it went against tribal rules, everybody, even children, elders, would put down tools and they would just surround this young boy, and everybody would point out something wonderful about him. And then just step away. And it just moved me so much. Like, it was so different to anything, that I ever dreamt of, where you're trying to rectify. Whereas with this child, I don't have to say any more about it. It speaks for itself. It speaks alone. But, it's things like that where we start with our children, I feel will make a huge impact in the world. And even Bayo, since doing your course, Dancing with Mountains, the conversations I've had with people in the past couple of weeks have been so different to how I've been conversing, whether they're a 2-year-old, a 9-year-old, or a 50-year-old. But, that's, I just wanted to mention that sort of that that deep respect. And my son once came home from school and he did woodwork for the first time, and he bounced in the front door and he just said, you know, Mum, when a teacher respects you, God, you do anything for them. Mm. And, you know, yeah, I just wanted to throw that in because it's something that really moved me, and that this group in Australia are doing it for boys and for girls. And it's very slow to happen, but it has a huge impact. Okay.
Yeah. There's something just I have to do in our general settings so that everyone can unmute oneself. For this, I have to unmute all for a moment and then mute you again. But when I have muted you the second time, you can unmute yourselves.
Opa, é uma grande logística, meu. Fazer viagem até Setúbal, depois temos que ter sítio para ficar.
Now you're muted again, but everyone who wants to speak, you can unmute yourself this way.
This is Sharon Raji Maynard, and I just want to say how appreciative I am of this conversation that is bridging so many independent conversations or thoughts that have come through my world in the last few weeks. And I'm looking forward to seeing the broad expanse and the richness that comes as we share our individual understanding and our individual angst and troubles, if you will. So I just wanted to say I feel so in the right place at the right time. Thank you. Mm. Mm.
Hello, hi, this is Kim from London.
Hi, Kim.
I don't know if anybody else wants to speak. I was quite struck when you started the talk about protest, about mass protest, and how you think it actually builds or is on the same momentum as the old kind of a hierarchy power structure, you know, which in a way I can see of that being reactionary. And then seeing that it can actually also be ineffective, although it has moved so many people. What struck me in the most recent example was that the papers about the Iraq invasion by Britain had been opened up in the Chilcot Review. And one part of it said that there was 1 million or more people that protested on the streets of London against the invasion of Iraq. But Tony Blair and the government went ahead with it. And now we know that that was a wrong step. And not only was it a wrong step, but it was recorded that Tony Blair's prime minister said that the protest was fatuous, which meant that it was like a farce to him, that he discounted totally the 1 million voices that was on the street. So, I mean, I don't have any particular, you know, conclusion or whatever to say about it, but I just felt that that example in itself of 1 million or more people protesting on the street and not being taken seriously by those who actually have that power to make a decision, and also what you said about how it's still along that same kind of bandwidth, I just found it interesting. So, and for myself, I protested too. And my own personal experience was that I stepped out of myself, my own Asian conditioning of actually going out on the streets. And I remember that when I protested that war, I felt like really strong and independent myself, you know, like doing it for something that I believe in against the government. And also looking around me, you know, in fear that the CCTV in London was recording me and that they would capture all our faces and be able to like drag us all to jail or whatever. I mean, but that was more because of my own, you know, Chinese conditioning. But anyway, I just find it interesting about what you said, and we'll see, you know, what comes out from, you know, what happens next.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for this.
Just want to quickly piggyback on that, Ken, right? Thank you so much for bringing that to light. And so Elizabeth spoke about Michael White and his work with. I think it's the end of protest. Is that
the end of protest? Yeah.
The end of protest, and I think that work is valuable in terms of how it brings our attention to the taming of our rage, if you will. Mm-hmm. In a sense, it's like the original. I hate to use that word, original. Like, it presupposes that there is a starting point somewhere, a pure starting point. But there was once a time when protest was so vastly and potently irreverent. Mm-hmm. It was, to walk on the streets and to hold a placard and point it to the face of the government was to do the unimaginable. It's the height of rudeness to stand up to the governments that supposedly govern us.
It also could cost you your life.
Exactly. And so it's a height of rudeness. I think I'll put it that way. However, I think over time, the system, because the system is alive itself, the system has found ways to co-opt this irreverence, so that in some sense it now looks like entertainment. People are expected to protest right now. It's no big deal for 1 million people. I mean, I could tell you stories from climate justice activists that tell you that, yes, they got more than 1 million people on the road, on the streets, marching for climate justice. However, it still installs and nurtures the sense that power is to be found in UN or the powers that be, that they have the power. And protest kind of bends into that dynamic. You guys have the power, we're protesting it. I think one of the questions we can deal with here is, where does our power lie? What other forms of power can we tap into that maybe protest may not serve at this point in time? So we're looking for new forms of irreverence. I know of people who have stripped naked and danced in the face of police brutality, which is another form of perversity that I enjoy. but the thing here is, we can ask ourselves new questions about other spaces of power and open up those spaces for us to participate in.
There's also, I think, one dimension of protest that I think we haven't thought about it enough yet, because the big time of protest was a time of a complete different form of communication. It was a time of mass media. It started with newspaper, radio, television. We entered a completely different time where consciousness is co-creating via an internet that's creating a whole sphere where collective feelings are kind of swiping through the world. And there's something happening that I think is surprising for everyone, that there's so much hate and anger culminating, and we see it right now. And I think it's very much related that our own state of consciousness is in a state of coming together in a completely different new way, because we can connect in a different way, but we haven't found a way to really master this in a shared intersubjective way, that what we are doing together as we are talking together right now, or what's happening on Facebook, is an expression of a conscious expression of humanity. There's something happening that we as humanity have to learn right now, because we are not in the time of television anymore. We are not in the time of radio anymore. We are in the time of global interaction, where everything is built to create collective moods and collective leanings. And we are just in the kindergarten of how to do this together. So creating spaces where we learn to do this in a completely different conscious way, I think is a starting point for this kindergarten. I think we are in no different place in the kindergarten because we don't even know exactly what we are doing. We only know right now that how it is unfolding right now, something is really not happening or is happening in the wrong way. And we have to learn how to master this new way of how we can collectively engage with each other on a global scale. And the activism will come through this collective interaction that we are in anyway, but it can be the collective activism of anger and fear as it is predominant right now, but it can be something different. It's depending on us, and it's depending on us consciously trying to find ways how can a different consciousness be given birth in this where we are here.
Yeah, I'm kind of blown away by thinking about like the earth as an organ. I don't mean like an organ like the heart. I mean like a musical instrument where there, as you said, these sweeps of mood go through. You wonder, it's like how can we do this together in some way that there's something that we're working at that I think at this point is working us, that we're not like so consciously playing with, although maybe some people are, in terms of what the quality of this energy and feeling and whatever is. What is it that we're doing with this together? It's interesting to think about that as a form of change making. It's extraordinary. But actually, Antoine, I wanted to make space for you, so because you've had your hand up there.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I've got to say that the part of this conversation that really stood out to me was, I want to say this brother's name correctly. Is it Bayo?
Bayo.
Just a little to the left. You're almost there. It's Bayo. Yeah, you're right. Go ahead, brother.
Bayo. So Bayo was talking about ritual, and Elizabeth said something about how we don't have so many rituals in the West. And I was exactly on that page, Elizabeth. Like, yeah, I think that I was feeling some sense of lament that coming of age rituals, certainly for young boys, don't seem to be very prevalent. And I really like the way that this conversation got rejoined by Bayo. I'm sorry, I keep messing it up.
Biology.
Biology, okay. And that these rituals, we're enacting them all the time in the ways that we live our lives. And that was so deeply profound to me because it made me aware of my own, like this happens there, but it doesn't happen here. So my sense of boundary, like where's the boundary? This thing is a phenomenon that we don't do, but they do. So where that led me was to think about these ways in which other people enact their lives differently and how I create this boundary. And so in particular, I was thinking about watching the Republican National Convention and how deeply I felt of them as other. And like these things that they do, like that's their thing. And that there's a kind of enactment that's happening in the way that I do myself that is manifested in the fact that I even had that reaction towards what I see them doing, and that I'm totally blind to my own selfing, my own way of doing self, because I'm projecting that out to this those people, they're doing that. That's their thing. But I'm in the midst of that very same process myself. but it's not clear to me that that's my process. So anyway, that really got triggered for me in this process. And how do we, if we're trying to, as Tom said, come together, relax? Or how do I relax as I come together with other people, my own strong sense of selfing, in order to be with other people as they describe their way of being in the world, and not like, oh, that's so awful. How can you think that? How can you do that? So that something creative actually can happen between us, because the fact is all of us are doing it, but to have some humility about that, all of us are doing that, and that we really want to do something commonly, but that's the creative dimension. How do we do that?
Actually, when you were speaking, Antoine, I thought about experiences that I had on meditation retreats, where after meditating for a long time, you'd wake up in the morning, and when you open your eyes, you didn't know who you were, but you didn't know that. But then just a little bit later, the self kicks in. Just a little bit later, then you know who you are, you know where you are, and you know what's happening. And there's, in that gap, there's like, what is that gap? What is possible there? Where can we go with that? That's, they're deep selfing rituals, very deep.
I think I'm going to use that very often. Selfing. It's beautiful. You could write a book about that. It turns the self, like I've just written in the chat box, into a performance. It's a performance instead of a thing that is a giving. And that makes it possible for us to have empathy for the other. I like to say that the soul is strange. We haven't met her yet. That the soul is not that which, like a ghost, inhabits the machine, hides within us, that is essential and is uncontroversial. It's just there. The soul is the other. The soul is the non-human. The soul is the applause of the world, of dirt, of Republicans. I think in your case, Antoine, the soul is the applause of strangers. And that's how we come to be, from this entanglement of everything. Thank you for sharing that, brother.
I'm wondering, would it make sense to go into groups now? Because there was a request in the chat chat space for some small groups, and we can set those up.
And do this for 20-30 minutes?
No, we're running close for this call. I think for 15 minutes, and that will mean and we need to talk about, well, what do we want to? Let's do 4 people. Yeah. What do we want to speak about together? What do we want to? The enactment of self, the ritual of self. What do you think?
Maybe what wants to be said will be said in that context.
Good.
Maybe like Thomas said, we're at kindergarten people. Let's sit with the not knowing of what wants to be said, and let that discipline us. And so, in the rooms we would embrace the awkwardness of staring at each other, and let that invite new ways of speaking with each other. So yes, let's show up with our shyness or awkwardness, not knowing what to say. It's resourceful. It's good.
Great. So we're breaking you into groups at the moment. Takes a little bit.
You are muted.
Oh.
Going.
Okay, it seems that we have not all given away.
Hi, Heike.
Hey. How do we do this?
I don't know. We're experimenting here. We've done it once before, but let's see. Most of you should have received. I don't know how it works because I've never been on the other end of it, but most of you should have received an invitation to a group, I think.
Yeah.
And then if you join the group, you go. Is that true, Carol? Did you get an invitation to join a group?
So why don't we just continue as a group then?
Yeah, then we're a group.
And if you want to unmute yourself, and we are 6 people still. Why don't we do it this way?
Yeah.
Cool.
We're 6 people. We're each a half, you and me.
Okay.
I'd like to bring in another aspect into this whole conversation, and I'll begin by just describing the situation I find myself in, and maybe it's a bit indicative of what's happening to a lot of people and will continue happening to many of us. Right now I'm in Berlin with my daughter and granddaughter. They've come here from Turkey, and my son-in-law is still there and plans to come out next week. We hope he will be able to come out. And his sister and her friend, they also want to come out. Now they have emergency laws right now, and the whole place is in a turmoil and so on and so forth. And my son-in-law is furthermore a Kurdish guy. So, you know, I'm caught up in a situation, and which is very difficult to predict. You know, where is it going, and are they going to stay here? Are they going to go back, and with it according to their flight plans and so on? And in a way, I'm actually quite relaxed, and this this is sort of new for me. Yeah, I have the feeling this is just, I'm bringing this example because it's a personal thing right now, and I'm bringing it because I have the feeling it's a bit of an example of what we're all in. Just this is very, very, very practical, very everyday, very physical. It's, you know, it's something that obviously is going to pan out this way or that way, and I guess it'll pan out, or I feel it will pan out the way it should. That's all I have to say about this for the moment.
but I'm really caught up in something. I mean, I've been to Turkey a lot. I've spent a lot of time there. I speak the language to some extent. It's really weird, you know, how things suddenly reach into your life, and then for me, what's new is how do I deal with this? And yeah, there are no patterns, there are no models. Just have to go ahead, deal with it. And of course, there are moments of great fear and panic and so on, but I realize that doesn't help much either. Yeah, I just wanted to contribute that, because I'm not. And I assume that this is true for a number of the people, or maybe all of us. We're not just talking about creating spaces. We are in spaces, whether we want it or not. And many new spaces and situations are developing. That's from one day to the next, or from one moment to the next.
Thank you, Carol.
Yeah. I very much resonate with that. We are in spaces, if we want or if we don't. Because just to acknowledge that, there is no way out of that. We are in spaces. Points to the fact that we have to start to look at how do we design these spaces, or what kind of space do we want to create together? How are the spaces that are life affirming, and how are the spaces that are not life affirming? And how is the possibility to have a conscious relationship to the fact that we're in spaces all the time?
I would even say we are spaces. You know, it's something, we are space somehow. You know, we are spaces that haven't, that imprint, that we're in relation to. We're in relation to other fields of space, or other densities of space, or other movements of space, other, you know, everyone's had this simple experience of walking into a conversation where two people were really engaging with each other, and you walk in and the space changes temperature, becomes like, you know, cool, and with, you know, something feels pulled in that space. It's like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here, I guess, you know. But it's that we are and transmit and engage with spaces, and there's a certain kind of deep I don't know what it is, responsibility.
I think we have a big problem in the West of, it came up a number of times in the conversation so far, that the things are happening out there. And when you said now we are in spaces, we are still having to get rid of this habit of Western scholarship or academia or whatever, or reading, or, you know, we are dealing in every moment, in every day, in every hour, we're dealing with situations that call upon us to be there, to be present. And yet we have this, somehow, this stress overall it makes us think the problems are out there, and that won't hold anybody. That won't hold for anybody anymore very long. I'm just saying, in a way, it's over. Now, maybe many of us have learned to find our way out of this overall, but it is still often there in our habits of intercourse.
Heike, verstehst du?
I understand very good.
Oh, great.
My English is not so good, but the theme my theme is the individual, the psyche. I work in a psychiatry. I don't know the English word, psychiatry.
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 Oh.
Bayo sits up. Bayo's a clinical psychologist.
Okay. My job is to help the people who work there to be healthy, but they don't be healthy.
Yeah.
And on the other side, the people around, also in Nizza, in Nizza, there is a man who drive 2 kilometers. 80 people are dead. And it's a psychological crisis. And it's a symptom for the whole society. And that's a point where I'm very touched that so many things are going in this direction with individual crash down. And it shows that there is no longer a control from outside. It's changed. We are called to come from inside and live from inside and have the Verantwortlichkeit, responsibility, and to see this connection that we all are connected, and not only to see it with our knowledge, so just to feel it. Also, it's Erfahrungsraum, also
room of experience or space of experience.
That's, I think it's a bit the most big Herausforderung.
Challenge.
Okay.
Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you.
But I think the individual self is breaking down. It is. There's the number of dis-eases that are emerging. There's the pathologizing. We're getting too many pathologies for we're all pathologized.
And we have to make a transition to something here. When Carol also was speaking about in our small group before about the Western self sense, you reminded me of a conversation I had with a friend, Katsuma Matoba. He's a Japanese professor who is teaching here in Germany intercultural communication. And one thing that he always brings in his lectures is that in Japanese language, you don't have the same I word like we have in German. That always means the same. They have, I'm not sure if I reported right, something like 20 different words for the word I, always depending on the kind of relationship you are in with the other. So if you're elder or younger, if you're male or woman, if you're one or two, the word for the I changes. It's completely dependent on the situation that you are in. And it's not this kind of I that you carry around completely independent of where you are, like it is the Western self-sense. And just to be aware that there's a different life experience, like this Japanese life experience, whatever it means, is in itself, at least it was for me, a very enlightening experience. Wait a moment, that really changes who you are when your sense of I all the time changes depending on who you're talking to. That's a different form of selfing. You use the word that we used in this conversation.
Excuse me. Can you hear me? My name's Kerry.
Hi,
Yes.
Carrie.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi there.
I was in another group, and I was told that we were going to be connected to the main group, and I got connected to you. I just want to let you know that there's somebody here listening to you.
Great.
I'm from Hawaii, and happy to hear what you're saying. So please continue.
Great.
Great to hear.
Good.
Carrie, this is Andrew from your group. You are back in the main group now. And I also took down your telephone number so I can text or notify you as per your request to be in touch with.
Well, what do you have as my telephone number? Because I phoned somebody else's number to get in.
808-937-6925.
Correct. Anybody else can have that number too. I'm happy to connect with anybody. I feel isolated sometimes in Hawaii.
Right. There's someone else from Hawaii who's on this call.
There's several people.
Oh, there's several people.
Yeah, I was in my group of 4. One of the people was my sister, who's on another island. I'm on Oahu. She's on the Big Island.
Oh, really?
and it was weird to have a conversation at this level with somebody that you've known all your life.
Yes, it must be.
And also then to have one of the 4 people, I think it was Jim in the foursome, start to bring up the issues of as part of topics that we should have here. The conversations with the non-human, or relationship with the non-human, and then knowing that my sister and her husband, who were both like you and Tom and Elizabeth, were all in the same window, who are very deeply involved with issues of the indigenous people in Hawaii, and I think that is a conversation that we can have at this level.
Sherry, are you the sister? Are you Susan's sister?
I'm not sure. My name is Kerry, Keri.
No, there's another woman. There's another one named Sherry.
Sherry, yeah.
Oh, Sherry.
Sherry and Dave.
And Sherry's also from Hawaii. As is Susan.
Do you have a number?
Carrie, I'll put your number on the board. Is that okay? On the chat?
Sure.
Here? Okay.
You guys can
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah.
The only trouble is I'm leaving in the day or so to go to BC to visit, in Canada, to visit my 90-year-old mother. So that number won't function unless I think I can use it through Wi-Fi though. So go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I appreciate that.
Great. I think actually we're at a point where we need to start to kind of wind together in a wind down. Vero's here. I basically what we're planning to do is do more of this. And our hope, as I said, we'll be joined by Bayo, Thomas, and I will be joined by someone else who's thinking deeply about what does it mean to create change, and continue these. We'll brainstorm and figure out how to continue from this conversation, and then we'll. My hope is that we'll spend. You'll be able to spend some real time in groups together so that you meet each other and connect with each other. We also have, Vero's here, yes, hi. We also have some facilitators to join the groups and just to help with some things that happen. I think their deepest desire is for not to just be part of the group. So it's not about being directed, and we'll month by month over a 6-month period on the first Friday of every month see where we can go and what we can bring alive between us, and figure out how that changes who our selfing, if it becomes a new ritual of self, and what does that do to what we call our work in the world, and how does that change?
And one request, please just bear with us as you are recognizing we are finding out right now how to do this, and it's also kind of a new way how we can do this together. So as you experience our learning experience here, bear with us that we are learning this together here.
Yeah, and your suggestions, you can write to me and say, hey, it'd be better if we did it this way or that way. I'm sure it's, if you have thoughts in between sessions, just, write a line and let's see if as much as possible we can co-create something.
Sounds great.
Great.
Yeah.
And someone has asked about sharing emails, and I think we'll have to think about a mechanism for how that can work, because maybe not everyone wants to, or I don't know. We need to figure out a way that where everyone feels behind that and does as they want with their
it's a starting mechanism for everyone who wants to send an email.
Or you can put it in the chat room, and I can publish the chat.
I'm not calling from my computer, so I can't do that. This is Neville here, by the way.
Hey, Neville. Hi.
Hi. Yeah. But you can share my email as well, Elizabeth.
Okay.
That would be great. Yeah. Perfect.
You can also share mine. This is Kerry here in Hawaii.
Okay.
Because I'm also just on audio.
Yeah.
Understand.
And you can also share mine. No problem.
Who is that?
That's Bernadette.
Oh, thank you, Bernadette. Okay.
Mine as well. I'm Carol.
Carol Berg?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Carol.
And you can share Sherry and Dave.
Okay.
Good.
Right.
Dare I ask where the chat room is?
Where the chat room is?
Yeah, I don't have a computer. So, but I will have when I'm in Canada, so I'm going to have to figure that out. But I presume it will be self-evident.
The chat room? Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Great.
How do we get to the chat room?
You're in it. Oh, you mean on phone? On the phone?
Yes.
You are with us.
On screen, to figure out a way how to send it.
Yeah. Well, we can send. I can send emails through the email portal.
Yeah. Great.
Right.
And if I want to respond, who do I send an email to? Do I?
You can send it. You can send it to the support number or the info number, and I'll get it eventually. Not too long. I mean.
No.
Yeah. No, I don't mean the email being long. It won't take very long to get to me. Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.